Good morning, church. Jeff here. It's nice to talk to you this morning. I want to send out a brief video and just connect with you and share a few things on my heart. I'm titling this video, The 3 Most Common Questions the Pastor is Being Asked. I've had probably 400 phone calls, texts, or emails in the last week, just from church members mostly. As a lot of people are talking, wondering things. So I am live from Abby's Playhouse. I built this a few years ago out of a fence that was thrown in the dump. And so I thought this was about the only dry place I could find. And so here we are. And we are going to just talk about a few things that I hope will encourage you. Again, I got a great response last week from the video I sent out midweek. So I just want to talk and answer 3 of the 3 most common questions I've been asked, and I think this will encourage you. The first question is this the end of the world? And here's the answer. I don't know. Probably not. Here's the thing, guys. As I said Sunday morning, we have not even begun to suffer. Many people are dying, many people are sick, and it's absolutely horrible. But in the grand scheme of worldwide apocalypse, we still, the church in Augusta, Georgia, have more access to food and religious freedom than most Christians on the globe. So if you look at history, the history of the church or the history of America or the history of the world, there have been 100 worse things that have happened in history since Jesus' resurrection. The Crusades, the various plagues that went around the earth, the Depression, the World Wars, just to name a few. So, in the grand scheme of things, it is a horrible thing, but it's also a very small thing so far. I've been sharing this book and talking a lot about it, and I've had a lot of people ask me, so I'm just going to show it to you again. A book that I've been quoting a few times called We Had Everything But Money. It's a book and just stories and pictures and letters from the Great Depression and just how people found themselves during that time. And, things like that give us perspective. I'm personally reading through the book of Revelation. I've been reading through the New Testament, and it just so happens that in this season my reading is a chapter of Revelation every day. And, looking at that, and I've talked about Jeremiah 12:5 several times, which just gives us perspective to not fall apart and gives us strength for the future. So I want to just encourage you, is this the end of the world? Probably not. We don't know how long all this will go on. We don't know how long our church will not be able to meet. Could be weeks, could be months, but either way, our attitude should be the same. We don't hinge our composure or peace on what is happening in the world. I'm going to talk about that in a moment. We are people, as Revelation says, that do not fear the second death. So our peace and our composure are founded on our faith. And, times like this test the reality of what we really believe, don't they? But to address that, is this the end of the world? Number 2, what about the church? Are you worried about the church? I've had a lot of people ask me that. And the answer I have is I have tremendous care for the church, but I do not worry about the church, and that is our church. And there's a big difference between care and worry. When I think about our church in the last 2 weeks, I'm just super proud. I've seen so many people just rise up, share money, share resources, calls, texts. The feedback I'm getting is overwhelmingly encouraging, that people are rising up, taking care of each other. As I've shared in the last week or two, we have so many virtual opportunities for you to experience worship, teaching, fellowship, prayer, all those things. And I encourage you to take advantage of those things. And I just think this is a time it's a time to test. It's a test of the true strength of our faith and of our church. Someone even said, well, what if we, economically something happens and we lost our building, our church building? I don't think that's going to happen. Guys, if it did, it's not really a big deal. I've never felt like anything that we do hinges much on physical things. Church is a group of people. So, I would encourage you to not worry. Is the things that I've shared, the ways you can be involved supporting the church through online giving. A big thing I've gotten big response to is the call one, text three a day encouragement I gave a week ago, and I've heard a lot of you guys doing that. Call one person, text three people. So number one, is this the end of the world? Probably not. Number two, what about the church? We're going to be fine. We're going to be stronger. And the last question, and this is a big one with a lot of people, and I've spent hours and hours and hours on the phone talking about this, and people have just said, Jeff, I just feel overwhelmed. What should I do? And I want to say I understand that. I do as well. There's reasons that in my life I look at what's happening and how it affects me, and I am definitely feel at times overwhelmed. Let me share with you 5 things that I think, just 5 practical things that will help, I think, us to feel peace instead of overwhelming. Number one is don't add to the noise. Don't add to the noise. It's amazing how many people overnight became experts in epidemiology. It's shocking to me. As I read news, I read responses to what our nation, our state, our city is doing to try to save lives and not overcrowd hospitals in this pandemic time. So, I just want to encourage you, don't add to the noise. Don't stir up anxiety and tension. Don't post things, or even don't look for things where people are saying, well, now it's this bad. Well, now this many people have died or are sick. There's just, it's almost a narcissistic obsession with, let's just focus on how bad things are. And I want to encourage you, don't add to that. Yes, there is legitimate data. There's legitimate news. It's important that we know to some level what's going on in the world. But, your brain and my brain, it has a physiological finite amount of space, of memory that it can hold. Okay, if you think of it like a computer, there's an amount of terabytes that it will hold. The brain is the same. There is a physical amount of space, of data that can be stored in here. So you have a choice of what are you filling that cup up with. And if you fill it with stuff that promotes anxiety and fear, you're limiting the space of how much peace and love and joy and celebration you can fit in there. And I'm not saying to be oblivious, but I'm saying just be careful. As I've said many times in the last few weeks, the Christian is always to be the most non-anxious person in the room. So, and I would add in the virtual room. So really think about that. Don't add to the noise. Encouragement 2 out of 5 is don't make any major decisions right now. That's really important. Relational, financial. Don't make any, whenever you're in a time of crisis, it's not wise to make quick decisions on things that will have a big impact on your life. So I want to encourage you, don't make any major decisions. Number 3, this is fun. Get a schedule. Many of us now are working mostly from home, and that's taxing. It's hard. So to help with that, there's this beautiful thing I've learned. Part of why I love the Old Testament is my favorite part of the Bible, and that is this word liturgy. Liturgy means an order, an ordering. So throughout the Bible, from the very beginning in Genesis 1, 2, we see God creating a liturgy. He creates an order of, this is how the day will work. There will be light and then there will be dark. And this is how the week will work. There will be 6 days of this, and then there will be 1 day of rest, and then you'll start over. And then the liturgy of our life, that we crawl, we walk, and then we sit. The liturgy of the church calendar, the years, the rising and setting of the sun, all these things, it's liturgy, it's order, it's important. So we translate that as people into creating a liturgy in our life that will help us maintain some sort of order. And that is a good and godly thing. It will promote peace in your life, whether it has to do with waking times. I wrote down a few ideas here. For us, we have a teenager in the house and we have a 10-year-old. And that's a lot to take care of. Not as much as when 4 were in the house, thank goodness. But so for us, we have a schedule of who does laundry what day a week, and when you're allowed to come in the kitchen and get food, and chores, when is quiet nap time. We have all this. We have it written down, posted in our kitchen, so that our children realize this is the day I can do laundry. This is when I'm allowed to be in here and make my lunch, so that we're not always in each other's space. And if you're not used to everyone being home all of a sudden, that's maybe a problem. So I want to encourage you, create a liturgy. And if you want to see what we've done, just shoot me a text and I'll take a picture of ours. So number one, don't add to the noise. Number two, don't make any major decisions. Number three, get a schedule, get a liturgy. Number four, celebrate what is. I want to encourage you to celebrate what is. Now, this is, again, answering that third question. I feel overwhelmed. What do I do? Don't add to the noise. Don't make major decisions. Get a schedule. Number four, encouragement on that third question, is celebrate what is. You know, the Bible says, I think in Timothy, don't quote me on that, but it says, if you have food and clothing, therewith be content. So there's something about us, you know, getting back to the basics here. Again, in celebrating what is, you know, get out the board games. Rediscover your old catalog of old LPs or CDs. I've really enjoyed getting back into some music from the 90s that I enjoyed and have not listened to in a long time. And just putting that stuff on while I'm doing chores and that sort of thing. In my neighborhood, just the walking, the amount of people walking out, that sort of thing. So getting in deep conversations, and I want to quote to you, just celebrating what is. This is just a short quote from the story is told of St. John Berchmans, a Jesuit scholastic who died before he could be ordained. Once, while playing billiards, pool, he was asked what he would do if he were to find out that he would die in a few minutes. And he is said to have replied, I'd go on playing billiards. Isn't that great? Celebrate what is. Enjoy what you do have rather than fretting about what you don't. And fifth and finally, I just want to encourage you to dig deep in your faith. There was a word given many months ago by somebody in one of our intercession groups about we need to dig deep, and then we need to not stop deep, but we need to go deeper. Because the deeper you dig a well, the more water you can discover. I know that from personal experience. The first house I bought 23 years ago had a well, and the pump died, and we had to literally pull that pump out. It was 80 feet in the ground, and I was shocked to realize that the water table began at 40 feet down, and we discovered this as we pulled all this out and rewired everything. But the pump was sunk 80 feet. So we dropped the pump 40 feet, but then we dropped it another 40 feet. So it was resting, it was immersed in 40 feet of water, 80 feet under my house. And that was a really interesting lesson for me, and it still plays out today, just realizing that the deeper you dig and the deeper you plant yourself, the more water you will have. So, you know, when it comes to our faith, this is a time to dig deep. I shared this Sunday morning in my message that Joseph, when Pharaoh put him in charge, he stored up grain for 7 years. And then out of that 7 years, they were supplied during the famine. So we build equity, we dig deep in our relationships, in our relationship with Jesus most of all. And then from that well, from that deep well, we then can feed our faith, encourage others, promote peace in our lives. So I just want to encourage you to dig deep. And my last thing I want to say is I want to give you a little visual. This is my daughter's Bible. And we've encouraged her. She got this Christmas, I think it was, so a few months ago. And I just found her reading this months ago, and she still does. And these are she has highlighter pens, and she's just killing it. She'll read this for sometimes hours at a time. And she's not just reading the Gospels, she's in Chronicles and Leviticus. And I was just shocked to see her. I'd go in her room at 1 and she'd be reading. And then I'd go in at 3 and she'd still be reading. And then I would go in at 4 and she'd still be reading. And boy, this just encouraged me to see the volume of highlighting and reading that my 10-year-old is doing in this book. And it challenged me. So I want to encourage you in that too. Dig deep in your faith. Guys, everything's going to be fine. The Lord is our rock. and we will be fine. Keep doing the things you're doing. Encourage the church. I love all of you. I'm praying for you. I'm always here. Call me, text me, email me if you want to talk. I would love to. And bless you today.